Hey everybody, this is a tutorial on how to make falling platforms in Godot 4.4. In this tutorial we'll go step by step on how to build the platform, how to program its interactions with the player, and some more advanced topics like offsetting the player's jump velocity when the platform is in its falling state. By the end of the video we should have something that looks a little like this, where the player is on top of the platform, it shakes, and then falls after a certain timer has passed. Now let's get started. Alright, let's take a look at our world scene here. So we got a tile map set up. It's got simple physics collision. I'm using my own tile set for the game I'm working on, Skelly's Quest. If you like it, maybe I could upload it to itch. Just let me know. So we also have a collision here, this area 2D, in case the player falls off the cliff. And then we have our player scene. This is just a simple player setup. I'm not going to go over this in this tutorial. If that's something you want to see, let me know. Yeah, let's click play and see what we have right now. So we have this character. You can jump around, pretty floaty, but it works for this tutorial. And we jump in. Oh, you die. Okay, so that's what we're going to be fixing here. We're going to make platforms to cross this pit and get up to the top platform. Okay, let's open up a scene. So our root node is going to be a path 2D node. Under that we'll have a path follow 2D. Be sure to turn off rotates here, as we don't want our platform to rotate depending on the direction of the path, or else it's going to mess everything up later on. So just make sure to click that off. So let's take a look at how these two nodes interact with each other by placing some points down. So we add a point in. I can place a bunch of points, and now let's go to our path follow 2D, and you can see that the origin is following along the path. That's going to be super important for us as we build out our platform for the falling aspect. The next node we want to add is an animatable body 2D. So we see we have an error here. Okay, so we got to add a collision shape, and we need to add an animated sprite 2D. So for our animated sprite, let's come up here and add new sprite frames. Our default animation will be called idle, and our second animation will be called break. And go to idle and make sure you have it set to autoplay, and for the break animation we want to make sure it's not looping. I'm just going to quickly add in my sprite frames, and you can do the same, and then we will continue. So I've now added in my sprite frames. So I have my idle animation and I have my break animation, which looks like this. Just a little cloud of smoke. And now we can go to creating our collision shape. So we will create a new box collision shape here and just make it the size of the platform. Once you're done fitting the collision shape to the platform, make sure you come over to your collisions in the animated body 2D and make sure the mask is set to the layer your player is set to, because this will allow us to have the player jump on top of it. Let's rename our node here to falling platform and save, and now we can drag in the falling platform to our main scene. And if we press run, we should be able to jump on top and stand on it. Now let's add the final nodes to our falling platform and start coding the functionality between the player and the platform. Let's go to our falling platform scene, and under the path follow 2D node, we want to add a remote transform 2D. What this will allow us to do is to communicate the positional data from our path follow 2D node to our animated body 2D. So we can come over here and we want to assign our animated body 2D. And for the underneath the update tab, we also want to uncheck rotation and uncheck scale, because we'll only be changing the position and that's all we want to be tracking. Now we can also add our animation player. With this, we'll now be able to create an animation that follows the path of our 2D node, and we're able to change the position of our animated body using the animation player, which is really good for our falling animation. To set this up, we will want to go to the animation tab here and click new. Let's call this fall. And we will want to click on the path follow node. And you should be able to see a bunch of keys here. And basically we're going to be adding keyframes to our animation. So what we'll be animating is our progress ratio. And right now, if we move this, nothing's going to happen because we don't have a path. So we have to come here to our path 2D and we will add an element here. And this is a point. It's set at the origin, and then we can add another point, and we'll just set the Y to, let's just say 224, which is the bottom of our screen. So now if we go to path follow and we do the progress ratio, you can see it when we get to 1, it goes to the bottom of our animation. So let's click the key here when progress is at 0.0 and just click create. And then we can skip to 1 second in our animation and change this to 1.0 and then click the key again. And now if we scroll across our animation and we press play, there you go, it falls. Perfect. Last thing we need to do before we start coding is to add an area 2D to our animated body. So let's add an area 2D and a collision shape. And we'll name this area 2D player detection area. And let's create a collision shape for that. And what this will do is it will detect when the player first steps onto the platform. When you're done making your collision shape, come on over to the collisions tab here. We can untick environment since we don't care about the player's interaction with the layer. We just need to detect when the player itself has entered our area, and we keep that within our scene. So that is the last step we need. So we can go ahead and make a script. So let's go attach script and create. Perfect. Okay, now we should have a blank screen. So let's start by connecting our player detection area. So we can go connect. And we want to check if area.isInGroup player. Let's just start off by printing player on platform. And now we can test that in our game. Okay, so if we jump on the platform, it should print in the console that we've stepped on the platform. And there we go, perfect. So this is going to be our entry point into our falling platform here and is going to start our state machine. Let's start off by implementing the first interaction between the player and the platform. This will be our shake state. When the player touches the platform, we want it to shake for a set amount of time before it falls. Let's start off by making a scene tree timer. We'll call it shake timer. Let's create our timer function. Get shake timer. So let's set our shake timer equal to get tree dot create timer, and for now we'll set to 1.0. Now let's create our process loop. And we want to have our platform shake. So how we're going to do that is we're going to use a sine function, and we will use our delta time to continuously make it oscillate. So we will create a variable called time, which will just be a float, and we will have time be plus equal to delta. Whoops, delta. And then if shake timer exists and shake timer dot time left is greater than 0, we want our platform to shake. So we can do that by oscillating around the origin position. So we also will need that. And that will be equal to a vector 2. And we can set this in our ready function. So we'll go origin position equal to global position. Perfect. So now we can go global position equals origin position plus sine And for a sine function, we'll need two variables, frequency and amplitude. So we'll go var freq float, and we will set that to 20.0 for now. And then we will need amplitude, and we'll set that to something a little smaller, like we'll do 2.0. We'll probably have to change this around until we get something we like. So we go time times frequency times amplitude. Oh yes, we need only the y position. And this also needs to be .y. Perfect. Okay, so if our timer exists and our time is greater than 0, we should see a shake. So let's see if this works. Perfect. And it stops. So if we jump again, shake. Okay. Next, what we want to do is set up our fall state. So that's pretty easy to do. So what we can do is, right now we have our timer, and we want, after the timer is complete, to transition to the fall state. So we can use await shake timer dot timeout. And what this does is, after the timer is complete, we can then move on to the line, this line here. So we are gonna need access to our animation player. So we'll do an onReady var, and we'll call it animation player. We'll set that equal to our animation player. Perfect. And once we have that, we can now go animation player dot play fall. So let's check that that works. So let's press play. Oh yeah, that works. It's pretty quick. So we might want to turn the speed of the animation down slightly. So we can go to our animation, and on speed scale, I think I want it to be half as fast. So let's try that. Yeah, that looks better. I'm also going to place a couple more platforms into the world. Nice. Awesome. Perfect. The next thing we want to do is set up the last state, which is when the platform will get destroyed. So there's two scenarios that the platform will go through, which is either reaching the end of the animation or running into the tile map. So we have to account for both of those. So the first one we will do is when the animation finishes, which is pretty easy. So we'll just get the signal for when our animation finishes. So once we have that connected, we'll go if anim name equals fall. So when our fall animation finishes, we want our platform to initiate its break sequence. So we'll make another function called break platform, and we'll throw that guy up here. Func break platform. And we will need our access to our animated sprite as well. So onReady var animated sprite, which is going to be an animated sprite. Yoink that from over here. Perfect. So now we can we'll do animation player. We want that our old animation to pause. And we want our animation sprite to play break. Well, that'll be good when its animation finishes. We need the other case for when it hits the tile map. And the way I thought about doing it is using a raycast 2D, and you just simply shrink that guy down, so when it touches the tile map, it will detect, and it will also start the break platform function. So do collide with bodies, and we are going to look for the environment. So if we go into our code here, in process. We'll also get access to our raycast first. Add on ready var ray raycast equals raycast2d if ray dot is colliding, then we want to break our platform. The last thing we have to do is connect our animation sprite finish signal to our code, and if animation sprite dot animation, which allows us to see the name of the animation that just finished, is break, we can then queue free. So let's try that out. So we won't be able to see it for the ones that fall off the map, but we will see the one that lands there. Perfect. So that's now been queue freed. Awesome. Before we move on to the advanced section of the tutorial, there's one last thing we have to do, and it has to do with the hitboxes of the platform. You watch, it falls and he's standing on nothing. So we have to make sure we disable that hitbox when it hits the tile map. So if we go into our function here, we want to create an onReady variable, and we'll call it platform collider. That is a collision shape 2D. And we will grab that from there. And when the platform breaks, we want to get our collider. And there is this disabled value, but I've found Godot will sometimes not disable the value. So you can use set deferred when in doubt, go disabled, and then set disabled to true. So now if we go back, now we should see that the collision is gone. Perfect. So now we have a working falling platform that's customizable. You can change the values of the shake. You can change the speed at which it falls. There's only one issue I find with the animated body, and it's when the platform is in motion. Watch. The jump is very dampened, and that's due to your player moving downward at the same time you're trying to jump. So you need to create some kind of offset to counteract the downward motion to your jump. And since our platforms move linearly, we can just find a value we like and detect when the player is falling with the platform and add that offset to our jump if we're jumping off of the platform. So let's do that. So I want to make another area 2D inside of our animated body, and we're going to call it, and we'll call it jump boost, and then we'll add a collision shape to that and put it above our platform, and this will be the area in which you'll be detected that you are standing on the platform. So after we're done creating our area, let's go and give it a group name. So let's call it jump boost. Perfect. Make sure it's on your area 2D and not your collision shape. So come to the player. So we already have our hitbox area here, and we use it to find kill, our kill area for when we fall off. So if we go area.is in group jump boost, let's do a print and see if it works, and also double check that you're checking the layer. So yeah, we're looking for platform. Perfect. Okay, so we should see when we jump into this hitbox that we can do the jump boost. Yes, but we only want this to happen when the platform falls. So we want to, on the ready, we want to get our, hold on, let's just get access to our jump boost slider. There you go. And then we can go jump boost, slider, dot set, deferred, disabled, true. And then we want it to be enabled when we fall, so when the timer runs out. And then we can go set disabled to false. And then we want to disable it again when it breaks. Because you can imagine you want it disabled when it's stationary before you go onto it. You only want it to happen when it falls. So we have it get turned on when it falls. And then we want to turn it off again when it hits, let's say, the tile map. Because we don't want to be able to do the boost jump when we're on the tile map. So let's check that out. And if you're wondering how I see the collision shapes, you can just go to debug and turn them on. So let's press play. So you can see when they're grayed out, that means that they are disabled. So we'll jump on, it should turn blue. Yep, perfect. And then you can see in the corner here, jump boost. And that only occurs when the platform falls. And that's what we want. The last thing we want to do is we just want to come into our player and create a variable called can jump boost. And that will be a boolean, and we'll set that equal to false. So when we can jump boost, we want that to equal true. And then this is where we have to set the offset. So in our jump function, if we want to say if can jump boost, then we want to subtract, let's say 150, we'll try that. And then else, just we'll do the regular jump. We subtract because in Godot, the negative axis goes upwards. Just remember that. And then we just need to connect an area exit to our player. And then if we exit the jump boost region, then we want to make sure we set can jump back to false. Now let's give that a try. So when we see that light up, awesome, it works. We now get that extra jump boost when we jump off the downward moving platform. This is a good thing to implement if you're doing precision platforming stuff. Games like Shovel Knight, you know, they use those falling platforms and you jump to different stuff. If you have that weird dampening effect, it just feels terrible. So it's good to implement. Thanks for watching. This is the end of the tutorial. If you guys have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll answer. This is my first tutorial, so let me know if there's anything I can improve. Thank you. And subscribe if you feel so inclined, and like. Thank you.